Right now, for a limited time, pick up the Ultra Instinct versus Ultra Ego new merchandise line. It comes in various different types of shirts, colors, sizes, various different kinds of merch itself over on the Geekdom 101 store. I'll leave a link down below. Goku and Vegeta are lifetime rivals, and you can celebrate their latest taps into the highest levels of power by picking up one or more of these today. Links down below. Recently, Mike from Laffy Stop Media and I have done these little collab videos where we've been kind of debating or discussing different story arcs or different aspects of Dragon Ball and doing sort of like an internal versus discussion or pros and cons. And today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over to Dragon Ball Super, and we're going to discuss the two most beloved arcs of Dragon Ball Super that are both in anime and manga. I'm talking about the Goku Black arc and Tournament of Power. We're going to be discussing which one is better, which is the best arc of Dragon Ball Super, the Tournament of Power or the Goku Black arc. We're going to discuss both anime and manga versions, pros and cons, what we liked and didn't like now reflecting back, because it's been 5 years or so since Super ended, so why not? Mike, what's up?
How's it going? It's Mike here, as you already know, because I was already introduced. Now let's get into the video.
Now, we both kind of agree that the Universe 6 arc was the first time we got new material in Dragon Ball Super that wasn't in a movie for an arc. And then we had the Potafu arc, which is like a little 3-episode nothing. And the Goku Black arc really did start the good era of Super. Like, I still think that every story arc from Dragon Ball NZ is superior to Dragon Ball Super, but if we're looking at just Super, the last two arcs of the anime, the Goku Black / Trunks arc and the Tournament of Power / Jiren arc, those two are the two best ones. Would you agree?
It's hard for me to say. I'll get into it during the course of the video, but the third act of the Goku Black arc
has
makes
problems.
It really hard for me to say that it's like even the second best, just because of how much. Well, I'll get into how I feel about that ending for sure.
We'll talk about it. So, what I wanted to first of all discuss, I want to actually start by talking about the villain, because that's probably the most. Yeah. This to me is probably the biggest pro of the Goku Black arc is Goku Black himself. I remember going back to when episode 47 first premiered, which is the episode where the first episode of the arc, where we see Goku Black killing future Bulma, the SOS from the future. That was a phenomenal intro for a new villain, and for years, I made jokes about evil Goku. I even made a video called There Is No Evil Goku, which has come back to haunt me because we got an evil Goku. I said, Broly's not coming back. It happened. Frieza's not coming back. Trunks is not coming back, and it all happened. So yes, I was wrong, but I didn't think they were going to go that cheap, and they did. However, Goku Black was a great villain. I always liked the narcissistic, sociopathic side of Zamasu. I like that Goku angered him, that he hated mortals. He thought that gods were superior. This whole mortals versus gods aspect of that arc was fascinating, and I thought that Goku Black to this day is probably the best villain in Dragon Ball Super we've gotten that's an actual villain. Jiren, Beerus, they're antagonists. Broly was an antagonist. You've also got Frieza, who was a villain, but he was one from Z. New people, I think Goku Black and Zamasu are the best. Now, I want to keep in mind before we get to your thoughts, folks, we're not talking about Moro and Granola because those do not have anime adaptations yet. We're just talking about the ones that were in both. So what do you think about Goku Black as a villain versus like the Pride Troopers in the TOP?
Oh yeah, I don't even think there's a comparison. Like for me, Jiren is probably the most boring main antagonist in the entire series up until now. At least not counting the manga and stuff, but like
a lot say
that some of the filler. Like think about Jiren in many ways. And even the Universe 6 comparative to Tournament to Power, let's say. Tournament to Power just kind of feels like a bigger version of Universe 6.
It does.
And Jiren feels like a more powerful version of Hit, but isn't anywhere near as interesting as Hit really in any way. So, Goku Black, kind of sums up the themes in many ways, Goku Black and Zamasu. The two sides of the coin, the god and the mortal, with the god within him, and playing up different aspects. But, we'll probably get more into that. But there's a lot of other characters throughout fiction that Goku Black and Zamasu parallel, like Sauron, for example. Sauron, also a god,
From
and,
Lord of the Rings.
Yep, he was a creator who eventually, had a powerful ring that allowed him to use powers beyond that of mortals, and eventually, because of his power and his evil doing, was scarred and changed in a way to where he was locked into a certain form that was like mutated and burned and changed based upon his original beautiful form and his shape shifting ability. So Sauron and him have very similar parallels. Same thing with Darth Vader and Anakin, and Zamasu and Goku Black. There's also some similarities in that sense. So also another great character from an anime, Yu Yu Hakusho, is Sensui, that Goku Black is very similar to as well. So there's a lot of similarities, which are all good similarities. Even going back to like Paradise Lost with like Lucifer and Adam and stuff in that in Milton's book, that are very similar to Zamasu and the themes and aspects of his character. When it comes to the execution, well, that's probably Super's biggest flaw overall, and I feel like it also affected him.
I think, going back to what you said a minute ago, I think the best parts of the Trunks arc slash Goku Black arc was probably the first two acts, because it was interesting, and I thought it was fun. I want to ask, I want to actually, because I agree with you, and we're going to get to it here in a minute on this video, the ending of each arc and which one we like more, because man, let me tell you. But I want to discuss, because you and I were around back then. We were doing a lot of videos, grinding them out. You were actually my guest on the video where we explained time travel,
Yeah.
how it actually worked. And to this day, I think we were the only ones that actually, I think we were the first ones to actually get it right. What else is new when it comes to me? But I will say this. I had a ton of fun during those days speculating. Now, I want to ask you, was it more fun to speculate, analyze, and discuss the Trunks arc with the whole Who is Goku Black mystery? Or was it more fun to discuss and speculate on the Tournament of Power, trying to learn about the other universes, Jiren and all that, the Pride Troopers? Looking back, which of the two arcs do you think was more fun when it came to just us talking and getting hyped up every week?
By far the Goku Black arc. I mean, like the Tournament to Power was pretty like straightforward in terms of what was happening, whereas the Goku Black arc, it had time travel, it had the return of future Trunks, it had the weird identity of who is this Goku Black, why is he Goku and has his body but also is not him, who is Zamasu and how does he tie into everything, how does Universe 10 and Gawasu tie into everything. There's so many like different angles that we had to analyze, and so many different ways of taking a look at it. So definitely when it comes to that, it would definitely be Goku Black arc. And up until the ending, like I feel like there still were a lot of merits to it and things that were worth definitely analyzing super in depth in that regard.
Yeah, some think that Goku Black arc is the best because of that. I will say this too. One thing I did like also about the Goku Black arc in comparison to the Tournament of Power is I loved the sort of like the lore building. The TOP actually showed us the other universes we had already known about from Beerus's like teaser at the end of Battle of Gods, but the idea of like time rings and how only gods can go through time. These are new aspects of the god hierarchy that we did not know. And I like that. The idea of the time ring as an artifact was always a pretty cool little idea. And the way it was used was also pretty cool. Tournament of Power didn't really give us that when it came to like artifacts. It just gave us a bunch of characters having a big battle royale, and that was fun for different reasons. So what I wanted to ask you is, I agree, Goku Black was more fun. What I wanted to ask you is, how do you feel about when like we talked about like the like the villains and the art and the speculation and all that. So the fighting. Now, Goku Black gave us a few good fights.
Yeah.
But to me, and to this day, Dragon Ball Super episode 110, which is when Goku did old UI for the first time. And that was the big mystery of the TOP. Like, when we were wondering who is Goku Black, I think the other parallel mystery in that arc was, what the hell is Limit Breaker Goku? We didn't even know it was called UI. Limit Breaker Goku is what we all thought it was, right? And Limit Breaker Vegeta and all that.
Yeah.
And, you know, we got it in 110. 110 to me soars above. So what I want to ask you about is transformations. Now, we got new forms in each arc. The Tournament of Power gave us Ultra Instinct, and Vegeta got Blue Evolution, but the main one was UI, and then Goku Black gave us Rose. Now, I like the idea of like a polluted, evil version of Super Saiyan Blue, but to you, which one do you like more and why?
The transformations?
The
Yeah,
new ones.
overall I probably would go with Ultra Instinct, to be honest. And this is for a few different reasons. Number one, Super Saiyan Rose looks cool, at least on Goku Black. You know, like the dark violets and the pink and
The
stuff
pink
like
and
that. It
black, the
depends
Bret
on
Hart
the
colors.
Yeah, absolutely. It depends on the episode, like how it's drawn, depicted, and stuff like that. But also, the Goku Black arc gave us Super Saiyan Rage, which was a really kind of just weak, lacking form that
The
was like the
Trunks version
inverse of
that we
Super
still
Saiyan
don't know anything
Blue.
about, right?
Yeah.
We don't
It
know
just
nothing
kind of
about
came
it.
out of nowhere. It wasn't even the manga version. It just was something they pulled out of their butt and gave Trunks, and then it helped him a little bit, but then, I don't know. It's a whole thing in itself. But Ultra Instinct, it was built up to for much of the series. It was hinted at all the way back in Resurrection F. It wasn't, ever told to us that it would be a new transformation. It's just something they gave Goku to give him like basically two new forms with Omen and then Ultra Instinct. But like the fights that it gave us and like kind of the new aspects of Goku's fighting style and trying to build up to achieving that was a lot more interesting than Goku Black just being like, hey guys, by the way, I have a new form, and then just kind of debuting it and still not somehow being able to beat Vegeta immediately and needing to get a Zenkai mid battle, which he just randomly keeps getting Zenkais in the middle of fights and it's never explained. But either way, with Ultra Instinct though, I will say that I feel like the execution of that wasn't the best either, though, because the entire series we're told if you get this, you will be able to avoid all danger and be able to beat anyone. It's the instant win button. And then he still in the manga loses to Jiren despite having Ultra Instinct. And the anime, he can't even get the job done. But for me, the best version of Ultra Instinct we saw is basically when Goku went to the Avatar state, in that episode you mentioned where he like is like shrouded in aura and it's super slow-mo when Jiren is punching him and he's just able to like annihilate Jiren pretty much right away. That for me is like the best version. When it goes to like the typical like silver hair and like the typical looking Super Saiyan S transformation, it kind of loses a little bit for me. But that like aura draped that he was in, that was like that. If they had kept it that way, that would have been like a 9, 10 out of 10 form for me.
I love the form either way because it's just the everything about the Bruce Lee Migate no Gokui. I love that. Although I will agree that it was a little weird that he got the form and then they kind of put it away for a while. Then he got it again.
Yeah.
The scaling was very strange in that arc.
Oh yeah.
Also, one of the things I want to say to criticize both arcs is that this is when we started to see a lot more of the super ass pulls because Golden Frieza and Super Saiyan Blue, when the movie came out, I could see people arguing that being an ass pull, but really it got out of hand in the Trunks arc. Not only with the Ikari, the Trunks Ikari form, but also at the end with Trunks coming up with that Spirit Bomb sword. That came
Yeah.
out of nowhere. He never trained with the Genki Dama at all. That annoyed me, even though it was a cool idea. The concept of the move is cool. Came out of nowhere. And then in the Tournament of Power arc, there were tons like Kale's like wannabe Broly form came out of nowhere. Even
Yeah.
though if we're supposed to believe it's Broly, I'm not too mad about that. Blue Evolution definitely came out of nowhere. So I think both arcs did have a ton of ass pulls, and they're kind of
Let's also think
yeah.
about Kale and Caulifla just getting Super Saiyan out of nowhere. Like Kale, like you said, is like the
They
Broly
got it so
reference.
fast, man.
Yeah. Kale is a little bit more acceptable being that Broly reference, even though, you wonder why no one up until Kaba ever became a Super Saiyan in that universe. Like, it doesn't make any sense,
It's
especially with
weird.
Toriyama's S cell explanation. Like, if they're all peaceful good guys, shouldn't they all have super high S cells and all be Super Saiyans, right? But not just that. like Caulifla, the way she becomes a Super Saiyan is a massive like ass pull. Like it's like, oh, I'm really trained, so all you have to do is tell me the feeling of when you become a Super Saiyan. Oh, it's like a tingle in my back. Okay, and then she like in the middle of her next fight, she just becomes a Super Saiyan too. It's like Gohan, the biggest prodigy we've ever seen,
It took him a
in this
while.
franchise. He had to train for 4 years, like 3 years during the 3 year gap, and then 1 year with Goku in the time chamber, who literally was showing him how to become a Super Saiyan to become it. And then he became Super Saiyan 2 because of his like hidden potential. Caulifla does it in 5 minutes because, you know, she's
Well,
Caulifla.
the tingly back thing, I did do a video explaining it, but just and people took that video as like me protecting or caping for Super. It pisses me off when people watch videos and don't listen. I was
Yeah.
explaining where the tingly back idea came from. It's a legit martial arts thing, but I'm not saying I like it. I did not like the tingly back idea as much as like others might have, but I also didn't hate it either. But I did hate that it was almost too easy for her. It
Yeah.
was a bit much. But going back to what you said about UI though, the best moment or one of the best moments of the TOP was the fact that for the first time we saw a fusion actually lose a fight without it being a time limit problem. Because in
Yeah.
the past, Vegito, Gogeta, Gotenks, it was always time limit. Goku and UI straight up overpowered and defeated Kefla, and that was cool. Now,
Yeah.
let's talk about let's talk about the anime versus manga real quick, and then we're gonna wrap it up with the third act problems we're gonna discuss, the
Yeah.
ending and all that. So
I do want to talk a little bit about the power scaling too.
this we'll talk about that next, actually. But first, the anime versus manga versions. A lot of folks like the manga versions of these two arcs more. I do not. Now, that's not to say there aren't good things in the manga because there are. For example, I like how the manga version of the Trunks arc alluded to a Universe 12 time traveler that will probably never get followed up on, but I like that, Trunks ain't the only time traveler and Cell. I like that. And the manga had that Mario Kart scene that was cool. And the manga also
Yeah.
kind of in the manga, Beerus seems stronger and Jiren kind of like UI does not seem as powerful in the manga, maybe because they knew they were going to write more, but I still prefer the anime version. I think that the one of my favorite times is the build up to the TOP where Goku's recruiting. Those episodes, some of them aren't that good. Like the Urine TN one is kind of
Oh
garbage.
yeah.
Right, but the Gohan Goku training one is one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah.
Gohan learning Ultimate again. The Goku like meeting like the Majin Fat Skinny Boo or whatever was pretty cool. Like stuff like that. But how do you feel about anime versus manga? I still think the anime supersedes it, although the manga, while it has less ass pulls, I didn't like the end of the Trunks arc in either one. But we'll get to that next, or after we go to over the power
Yeah.
scaling.
Yeah, with regard to the anime versus manga, I agree. There's a lot of things that I do enjoy in the manga version of the Future Trunks arc.
Same.
But with that being said, I do think the anime is just handled better, especially the Tournament of Power. Like the Tournament of Power in the anime is really dragged out. Like it's like the tournament of dragging on ball, like basically like it just never the tournament of filler, or padding or whatever I used to make jokes about. But like in the manga, it's the complete opposite problem. It is
Yeah, it's not
super
enough.
rushed. Like Toyotaro just seems like I want to just get this over with as fast as possible. And so he has so many characters eliminated in completely unceremonious ways, like really quickly. And it's like for all
Yep.
the complaining people did about, Piccolo getting eliminated by a bug that he couldn't hear in like even the anime version, I think. They did that in the manga and then they did like other ways that were ridiculous. And,
That remember that
I feel
Gohan
like
ass pull where Gohan like beat Kefla and we're like, what the like
yeah,
Gohan fans were happy. It was like out of nowhere. Like, all right, he's that strong.
yeah. It was a little it was much too much. But yeah, like the overall, I would say that I prefer the anime version for a multitude of reasons.
So scaling, you want to discuss scaling a little bit because, like I
Yeah,
mentioned, Trunks arc and onward. I mean, in some ways you could make an argument about Universe 6, but Trunks
yeah,
arc and onward, the scaling of Super really got ridiculous. There were
yeah,
problems before this, but There were things that happened. I mentioned how strong Trunks had gotten, and at some points it almost feels
Yeah.
like he's stronger than Vegito, even though he's not. But it feels that way. The
Yeah, especially
Zamasu,
at the end.
yeah, we'll get to that next. But the Zamasu thing, and then Jiren, like I thought there were some really dumb things. Like for example, Jiren meditating for all these episodes when he could have been out there eliminating people. Like that was
Yeah.
stupid. Like
Jiren could have eliminated everyone like within 1 minute if he just powered up and just knocked everyone out. Like that's one
yeah,
of the things that's so annoying about that tournament. There's so many examples of people just like being it's like when you're watching a battle royal in WWE these days where like there's a wrestler that's hanging over and somebody's pushing them and for no reason another wrestler hits them in the back and stops them so that the other person will stay in the
makes
match.
no
It's like why
sense.
why
Why
would you
would
do
you?
that, you
Yeah,
know?
why would you help not eliminate someone if it's every man for himself? I don't like that
Yeah.
either, bro. When they do
And
that.
I also hated that like every universe basically committed seppuku by Goku. Like every universe was like, even though it's a battle royal where all the universes should be fighting each other evenly, they're all like, let's all go fight Universe 7. It's their fault we're doing this. And it's like,
It
do
didn't
you guys
feel like
forget
a
the
real
beginning? You
battle
know, like
royale.
yeah, it just felt way too long. And honestly, if you're gonna do an arc this long, they should have. I feel like they should just done the dark tournament from Yu Yu Hakusho. Like had the teams fight each other and build them up over time. You also didn't need a 48-hour time limit. Like oh, we're gonna have the tournament
It's
in
like the
48
five
hours. It's
minute
like
dynamic thing again.
yeah,
What even worse? Even
yeah.
worse
It
because they
it was it
crammed
was
how
ridiculous.
many episodes was it into 48 minutes? Remember
It
how
was
every
crazy.
episode the narrator would say, "There's 2 minutes left. There's
Yeah.
seconds left," and it's like, no, that
There's
got
two
annoying.
picoseconds left, and this will take 10 more episodes. Like
Yeah,
it's crazy. But yeah, like in terms of the power scaling, as bad as the power scaling gets in the third act of the Future Trunks arc, the entire Tournament to Power arc is worse. Like it just is so insane. Like Goku in his base form fighting against Super Saiyan Caulifla because he knows martial arts. In the manga, Master Roshi dodging punches from Jiren because he has
that
weird
I
movements.
hated
Even though
that.
for Jiren it should be like a normal person trying to punch the Flash.
Dude,
Like it doesn't.
thank you.
Yeah,
I hated Roshi having his version of UI because that questions all the way back to like Jackie Chun, all the way back to freaking Roshi versus Piccolo in the
yeah.
old Dragon Ball. I despise him having UI, dude, to this
Yeah,
day.
there is so many things that make zero sense in the anime and manga
The
version of
side
both arcs.
characters weren't
But
even used
yeah,
that well, bro. Like Krillin
yeah,
got eliminated early. 17 and 18 did okay, but like 17 was fun. Frieza was fun. Vegeta, Goku were fun. Gohan was fun for a time, but he's also an idiot at the same time. Piccolo with the bug. They didn't use them as well as they could have, in my opinion.
yeah, absolutely. Now, with that being said, I do want to get into those endings because
Yeah,
that's the juicy part of the video, guys. You make
it
sure to
is.
stay tuned to the very end of this video because you're going to hear some interesting stuff.
Well, now's the good part because that to me is the biggest thing. So, in my opinion, the manga ending of both of these arcs is underwhelming, right? However, the anime ending for the TOP episodes 130 and 131 were fantastic because we got to see final, or what we thought was Master Ultra Instinct with the silver hair. The animation was great. It was a lot of fun. The fight was brutal. It was great. It was fun. I did a whole video on this earlier this year, Dragon Ball highlights going into that episode. And then episode 131 gave us the Namek team up of Goku and Frieza, and that was fun as well. That was good stuff in the anime version. The manga version, underwhelming. Now, I've said this before, and I'm planning on doing an entire video going point by point. The ending of the Trunks arc, both anime and manga, especially the anime, those last 3 episodes, it was cool seeing Vegito blue. That was fine. It was cool seeing, like, Trunks do what he can for his universe. But my God, that is the worst ending in the history of Dragon Ball of any arc. I've said this, and I want people to understand something. I'm not saying this because it was a quote unquote bad ending. It wasn't because the timeline was wiped away by Zeno, and that's why it was bad. It's not that. It's the reason as to why it being wiped away was dumb. And I'll just say this and let you give your thoughts. My opinion, that arc's ending is trash. Not just because of the ass pulls, but the entire theme of that arc is mortals versus gods, and Zamasu slash Goku Black's entire agenda and point was that the mortals weren't nothing without the gods. And how do they end the story? With having a bigger god kill him. While I did like him fusing with the universe, it was kind of like terrifying. We had never seen it like that before in Dragon
It's like
Ball.
Gygax from Earthbound.
Yeah, it's right. It's very much like a comic book video game type of thing. Zeno destroying the timeline proves Zamasu right. And then on top of that, Trunks and Mai having to go to another timeline where there's already a Trunks and Mai. It was almost like they just sat there and like 5 minutes just came up with this. Okay, go on to the next thing. Like they did not care. I hate that so much, and I'm gonna do an in-depth video on it sometime soon. And when I say soon, I've been planning it for a year now. It'll happen at some point. Mike, do you agree? What do you disagree with? And what do you think about the endings of these arcs?
I think the Future Trunks arc has the best ending in the entire franchise by far, and it is a masterpiece that is worthy of being added to the canon of the Holy Bible because it's so great. No, I hate it. It's terrible. It's by far the worst ending in the entire franchise, like you said, and it infuriates me so much every time I think about what they did. In one episode, they destroyed Future Trunks as a character, ruined his entire motivation to exist. They wiped away all the consequences of that. I mean, they didn't, but they tried to by making him go to another timeline that they just invented out of nowhere, because why not at this point, even though he could have either stayed in the main timeline or he could have, I don't know, wished his other timeline back with the Super Dragon Balls or something from this universe, and they just didn't. And so now he's going to go live in another universe where everyone he knows is not the people he knows. They're all strangers that are just from it. It's like if he lived in the main timeline, basically, with the current Trunks with the exact same memories, but it's still not the same thing. It's like an existential nightmare they sent this guy to, and they try and make it seem like a happy ending. And Zamasu didn't win either. Like nobody wins in that ending. Like Zamasu got this close to winning.
He was right too at the end of the day.
Yeah, like it was just like such a fu ending. Like it was like Toriyama gave the fans, Future Trunks, and everyone who asked him to make that arc the middle finger. He's like, "Oh, you want me to make an evil Goku and Future Trunks arc? Well, evil Goku gets wiped out of existence, and so does Future Trunks' entire purpose for existing. All of those characters that fought and died to make him, get that happy ending he had in Cell Saga." Goodbye. You don't get that anymore. Nope. Now you get nothing. Future Trunks is ruined forever, and it sucks too because he's one of my favorite characters in the franchise. And when they did that to him, I was just like, oh my god. And not even that, Gohan, the guy who was the main character. Oh god,
the ice cream licking. Yeah. That's right.
I hate that episode too of like Gohan doesn't have the power in him anymore. He gave up on martial arts. He will never be a fighter again. Flash forward to the next arc, he's a fighter again. He likes fighting. It's like it's just like
mess.
And then he doesn't even do anything. Like if the arc was about him and Future Trunks coming back to get him into shape and, to remind him about everything in the future. And like, this was his master. And this was the guy who was like the hero when he left. And he had nothing to even do with the arc at all. In fact, he got erased in the afterlife in the future. Like the Tournament to Power ending at least was enjoyable. It had a really great fight at the end. And, like it left open new possibilities for the main characters, whereas the Future Trunks, it wiped away all those.
Not to mention, I agree with almost everything you said there. Not to mention that they showed us like Future Aider and Yajirobe and all that stuff that just was like, okay. And then also Future Trunks arc, it didn't start it, but it continued this really annoying Trunks and Mai ship that I complained about during the superhero prequel stuff in the manga. And I said this, I know some people are very bothered by this because of the age difference, but to me, I'm not bothered because it's a cartoon character. I don't give a shit, but it's also stupid. Like it's just dumb. That ship does not work for various reasons. I did a whole video on this. Check it out on the channel. And this arc perpetuated it. Like, I did like that she kind of became like Sarah Connor. You know how much you and I love Terminator 2. But I didn't like that was with Trunks and the cat food. And But although that line where "don't shoot, he's not black," it was funny in the dub and the sub, out of context.
They knew what they were doing when they wrote that arc in the Japanese and the English.
Of course, of course. So overall, man, to wrap this up, I think we kind of agree to a degree. The best thing about the Future Trunks Goku Black arc was Goku Black. Seeing Trunks again was cool. Don't even get me started on the whole hair thing, but seeing him again was cool, and the Freedom Fighters and all that. But Goku Black was the best part of that arc. When it comes to the TOP, in my opinion, Ultra Instinct is my favorite thing about that. So, what is your favorite thing about each arc?
For me, the themes are in some of the concepts are the best aspect of the Future Trunks arc. Again, I love time travel stories and the concepts of like the fallen god and the mortals versus the higher beings and stuff. Kind of echoes a little bit back to like the low class versus the aristocracy from like the first two arcs of Dragon Ball Z in a sense and stuff like that. The fight against causality again, like the Cell Saga, but the tournaments of power, probably the fights and the emotional moments, because the thing is like I get more emotional moments out of the tournament of power,
Same.
like the scene where Champa gets erased and like Beerus has to watch everything, and he's like just telling the narrator just talk already, and like there's like a lot of really emotional stuff that happens in that arc, and that's why for I really like all that stuff going on there.
Yeah, I would agree. Check out Mike's channel for another video of these that we're going to be doing. Super 17 versus Fusion Reborn. Excuse me. Which arc is better? Over on Laughing Stock right now. Take care.